Let's Talk podcast.
You know that feeling? You're speaking English, everything's going fine, and then poof, the word you need, it's right there on the tip of your tongue, but it just completely vanishes.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly common and honestly pretty frustrating for learners.
It really is. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. Why does this happen? Why do those words play hide and seek just when you need them?
And more importantly, what can you actually do about it? We want to arm you with some really practical strategies.
Yes. So if this sounds familiar, and let's be real, it probably does for most English learners listening, the first thing to know is this is not you failing.
Definitely not. It's not about being smart enough or trying hard enough. It's just a really standard part of learning a complex new skill like a language.
Totally. Your brain is doing some heavy lifting, isn't it? Juggling grammar, pronunciation, meaning, context, all at once.
Exactly. Think of it like building muscle. When you exercise hard, your muscles get tired, right? That fatigue doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're challenging them, making them stronger.
I like that analogy. So that mental blankness, it's like brain fatigue, a sign that you're actually stretching and growing your language skills.
Precisely. It shows your brain is working hard, pushing its boundaries. So our plan for this deep dive is, first, to really normalize this experience.
Okay.
Then we'll break down why it happens, looking at things like stress, practice habits, how deeply you've learned words, and finally, the most important part, we'll give you concrete solutions, real exercises and techniques you can use to improve that word recall when you're speaking.
Perfect. Let's get started with the why. What's going on in our brains when that word just won't come out?
Well, one of the biggest culprits is stress or anxiety. When you feel pressured, maybe worried about mistakes or being judged, your brain can kind of flip into a fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And in that state, its priority isn't subtle things like finding the perfect word. Yeah. It's focused on survival, basically.
Right. It's like when you lose your keys and you're panicking trying to find them.
Exactly that. The panic itself makes it harder to think clearly and remember where you put them, even if they're right in front of you. Stress hinders that memory retrieval.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What else contributes to this word-finding difficulty?
Another huge factor is often an imbalance in practice. Many learners spend loads of time on, say, reading or grammar exercises, which is great for understanding, for recognizing words.
That's passive learning, right?
Exactly. But speaking is active. It demands you produce the words, often quickly and spontaneously. It's like knowing all the theory of playing the piano, but never actually sitting down and practicing the scales.
You need that muscle memory for your mouth and brain working together.
You do. Without regular speaking practice, your brain just isn't trained for that rapid, active retrieval needed in conversation.
Okay, so lack of speaking practice. That ties into another point you mentioned, shallow learning. What does that mean exactly?
Shallow learning is when you recognize a word, maybe you know its basic definition from a dictionary, but you haven't really internalized it. Meaning you haven't used it much, you don't know its nuances, the different contexts it fits in, or maybe you don't have a personal connection to it. It's just a definition you memorized.
So it's like a tool in your toolbox that you've seen, but never actually picked up and used yourself.
Perfect analogy.
Right.
You know it exists, but you wouldn't instinctively grab it for a job because you haven't practiced with it. So when you need it mid-speech, it's just not accessible. It's stuck in your passive vocabulary.
Right. And the last big why was about translation issues.
Yes, this is very common, especially earlier on. Thinking in your native language and then mentally translating word for word into English before you speak.
That sounds exhausting.
It adds a massive cognitive load. Your brain is doing double duty, formulating the thought, searching for translations, checking grammar, then speaking. Native speakers don't do that.
They just think, I'm hungry, and say, I'm hungry.
Exactly. That direct line from thought to speech isn't there if you're translating. It slows you down and creates way more opportunities for words to get lost in that complex mental process.
Okay, this is really clarifying why it's such a common struggle. So let's move to the solutions. What are the most important things we can do to get better at recalling words when we speak?
The number one thing, emphasized again and again, is simply practice speaking more. There's really no substitute.
Even if you don't have someone to talk to.
Absolutely. Talk to yourself.
No.
Seriously. Describe what you're doing as you make coffee. Narrate your commute. Talk about your plans for the day out loud.
You called this small speaking before.
Yes. These little moments of small speaking train your brain in that active retrieval process. It builds the pathways you need for conversation. It makes retrieving words more automatic over time.
I like that. Less pressure than a full conversation. What else?
Well, related to that is the idea of actively using new vocabulary. You know the phrase, use it or lose it?
Yeah.
It's crucial here. When you learn a new word, don't just write it down. Try to use it. Say it out loud in a few different sentences immediately.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you learn the word predict. Don't just memorize it. Say things like, it's hard to predict the weather. Can anyone predict the future? I predict this meeting will be interesting. Maybe even make up a tiny story using it.
So you're actively weaving it into your own language use right away?
Exactly. The more you actively engage with it, the stronger that memory trace becomes, making it easier to grab when you need it later in a real conversation.
That makes sense. What about learning words differently? You mentioned learning in chunks.
Yes. Instead of just memorizing isolated words like effort, try learning common phrases or collocations, words that naturally go together. Like make an effort, or a huge effort, or an effort to improve. When you learn these chunks, your brain starts retrieving words together. It's more efficient.
So it speeds things up and sounds more natural too.
It does both. It reduces the mental work of building every sentence from scratch, word by single word.
Okay, good tip. And lastly, managing that anxiety we talked about earlier.
Crucial, because stress shuts down recall. You have to remind yourself, mistakes are normal. They're part of learning. The goal is communication, not perfection.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True, but practical things help. If you get stuck on a word, don't panic. Try to describe its circumlocution. Say it's like a, or, the thing you use when.
Paraphrasing.
Exactly. People usually understand. And staying calm actually makes it more likely the word will pop back into your head later. Panicking just locks it away further.
Okay, those are great overall strategies. Now let's talk about some specific exercises people can do. You mentioned shadowing. What's that involve?
Shadowing is basically listening to a native speaker, maybe from a podcast, a video, whatever, and repeating what they say at the same time, like an echo.
Trying to match their pronunciation and rhythm.
Exactly. You mimic everything, the sounds, the intonation, the flow. It really helps connect hearing English words to producing them yourself. It can make retrieval faster.
How should someone start with that?
Start small. Just a minute or two of audio. Don't worry about catching every single word at first. Just focus on the rhythm and the act of speaking along. Consistency is key.
Got it. What's another exercise?
Using daily speaking prompts. Just simple questions you ask yourself and answer out loud for, say, a minute or two. No prep.
Like what kind of questions?
Oh, things like, what did I do yesterday? What am I looking forward to this week? Describe your favorite hobby. It forces that spontaneous word retrieval practice.
A little daily mental workout for speaking.
Precisely. Another simple one is just describing your surroundings out loud.
How does that help?
Well, you take a look around you right now. What do you see? Describe it in English. There's a wooden desk. On the desk, there's a black laptop and a blue mug. It builds automatic access to common, everyday vocabulary.
So you don't have to consciously search for those basic words later.
Right. It makes them readily available. And the last exercise was storytelling.
Telling stories.
Like fiction. Could be real stories, could be made up. The point is to practice linking words and ideas together in a natural flow. Focus on getting the message across, not perfect grammar.
So it's about connecting words and context.
Yes, it moves you away from thinking about single words in isolation and more towards expressing ideas, which is what conversation is really about. It helps improve fluency and recall speed naturally.
These are all really practical things people can actually do. Now, you also mentioned some myths that can hold learners back. The first one was about talent.
Yes, the myth that some people are just born good at languages and others aren't. It's just not true.
So it's not about innate ability.
Much, much less than people think. Success comes down to things like exposure, consistent practice, time invested, good strategies. Learning a language as an adult, often while juggling work and life, is complex. Forgetting words doesn't mean you lack talent. It means you're tackling a huge challenge.
That's really important to hear. What was the second myth about native speakers?
The native speakers never forget words or stumble. They absolutely do. All the time. You hear native speakers say things like, oh, what's that word again? Or, it's on the tip of my tongue. Forgetting is a normal part of how everyone's memory works, not just language learners.
That's actually quite reassuring. Okay, myth 3. Just studying harder will fix it.
Right. People think if they just memorize more vocabulary lists, they won't forget words when speaking. But, as we said, Speaking memory is different.
It's about active use, not just passive knowledge.
Exactly. You can ace a vocabulary test, but still freeze up in conversation if you haven't practiced using those words actively, in context, with some emotional connection perhaps. Rote memorization often isn't enough for fluent recall.
Okay. And the final myth was the fear of judgment.
Yes, the worry that people will laugh or criticize if you make mistakes or forget words. Honestly, most people are impressed you're even trying.
You think so?
Absolutely. Learning another language takes guts. Most people admire the efforts. And if someone does react negatively, that says way more about them than it does about you. Don't let that fear hold you back.
Good advice. Now, you touched on emotions earlier with stress blocking recall. How significant is that emotional link?
It's huge. Our emotional state directly impacts our cognitive functions, including memory. When you feel relaxed, confident, positive, your brain is just better able to access information.
And negative emotions like stress or embarrassment do the opposite.
They absolutely do. They create mental blocks.
Yeah.
It can even become a vicious cycle. You worry about forgetting, which makes you anxious, which makes you more likely to forget.
So how do we break that cycle? What helps manage those emotions?
Well, self-compassion is key. Don't beat yourself up over mistakes. Try laughing at them sometimes. It really diffuses tension.
Okay.
Deep breathing is genuinely effective when you feel anxiety rising. Focus on connecting with the other person, not on being perfect. And use positive self-talk. Remind yourself you're making progress.
So creating a calmer internal state helps the words flow better.
Significantly. It allows your brain to do its job without interference from panic signals.
This is fascinating. And you even suggested that forgetting itself might actually be good? How does that work?
It sounds weird, right? But think about it. When you struggle to recall a word, and then you finally remember it, or you look it up, that whole process sends a strong signal to your brain.
A signal saying,
Hey, this word was hard to find. It must be important. Let's strengthen the connection to it.
like the muscle soreness analogy again. The struggle leads to strengthening.
Exactly. The effort and slight frustration of forgetting actually prompts your brain to consolidate that memory more firmly. So instead of seeing forgetting only as failure, you can reframe it.
Reframe it as
Your brain highlighting exactly what needs a bit more reinforcement. It's part of the natural learning cycle, pointing the way toward stronger recall.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective. Now, to bring this home, you mentioned some real-life examples. Tell us about Anna from Brazil.
Right. Anna loved reading English, but really struggled with speaking. Even basic words wouldn't come out sometimes. She felt quite embarrassed.
What changed for her?
She decided to just push through the discomfort. She joined an online speaking group and committed to practicing daily, even when it felt awkward and she was forgetting words constantly.
And did it work?
It did. After about 6 months of consistent practice, she found she could chat much more fluently without freezing. Her big takeaway was realizing people were supportive, focused on her effort, not her errors. Persistence paid off.
That's great. What about Takuya from Japan? His issue was slightly different, right?
Yes, Takuya knew grammar well, did great on tests, but panicked when he had to speak. His mind would just go blank from anxiety.
So what was his strategy?
He started recording himself speaking for just 5 minutes every single day, just talking about his day, his thoughts, anything, not worrying about mistakes.
Just getting used to the act of speaking.
Exactly. And after about 3 months, it just normalized the process for him. He still forgets words sometimes, sure, but he doesn't panic. He can keep the conversation flowing.
So consistency and reducing the anxiety around speaking itself.
Yeah.
And Noor from Egypt.
Noor was initially quite intimidated by real conversations. Her main tactic when she forgot a word was to describe it instead of getting stuck.
The paraphrasing we talked about earlier.
Exactly. If she forgot umbrella, she'd say, the thing for rain. Keeps you dry.
Right.
You open it. People understood her. And she started seeing forgetting not as failure, but as a chance to be creative in communicating.
That's a fantastic mindset shift. So the common thread is persistence, finding strategies that work for you, and changing your perspective on errors.
Precisely. Everyone struggles, but progress comes from keeping at it.
Okay, so to help people keep at it, you outlined a practical daily routine. Can you quickly recap that?
Yeah, it's designed to be short and manageable, maybe 20, 30 minutes total, broken up.
Okay.
Morning. Maybe 5-10 minutes of that small speaking. Describe your room, your breakfast plans, just a quick warm-up.
Got it.
Afternoon. 10-15 minutes focused practice. Maybe take those new words or phrases you learned and actively use them in sentences aloud. Maybe record yourself.
Active use.
Yep. Evening, another 10-15 minutes. Reflect on your day out loud in English. What happened? What did you think? A little narrative practice.
And shadowing as a bonus?
Shadowing is great whenever you have a spare minute or two, waiting for the bus, doing dishes. The key is consistency. Little bits often are better than one huge session, rarely.
That sounds really doable. Breaking it down like that makes it less intimidating. So, as we wrap up, what's the final encouraging thought you want to leave listeners with?
Just that you are probably way closer to your goals than you think. Fluency isn't about perfection. It's not about never forgetting words.
What is it then?
It's about being able to communicate effectively, to keep the conversation going, despite those occasional blanks. It's resilience. Every fluent speaker got there through mistakes and persistence.
So keep going. Believe in the progress.
Absolutely. Every time you speak, every time you search for a word, even if you don't find it immediately, you are getting stronger. Trust that process.
That's a fantastic message. So just to sum up, forgetting words when you speak English, totally normal, happens to everyone.
Completely.
Yeah.
But it's also something you can absolutely improve with the right mindset and consistent active practice.
So the next time your mind goes blank, hopefully you'll remember some of the ideas from this deep dive and feel a bit less frustrated.
Exactly. Use those strategies. Reframe the experience.
Okay, so our final thoughts for you. Speak boldly. Forget boldly. Learn boldly. You're doing better than you think.
You really are. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and enjoy the journey.